Hey, welcome back. In today's menu, it's Watercress Rice Bowl with Pickle Marinated Tofu. Sounds exciting, right? So stay tuned. This is a really simple recipe. It only takes about 15 minutes. It's quick, it's easy, it's wholesome nutrition in one bowl. The star ingredient today is watercress. This is a highly underrated dark green leafy vegetable from the brassica family, and it's so nutrient dense that in layman terms you could also call it as a superfood. The other ingredient that we are going to talk about is tofu. I'm going to marinate it in pickle, and this takes the tofu to another level. And the combination of the two, oh, so yum. Let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe.
The star ingredient of today's recipe is watercress with these beautiful round green leaves. Watercress grows all over the world and we need about 200 grams including the stems as well. It is important that you chop and leave the watercress for at least 40 minutes before you cook, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I also have 4 cloves of garlic, 1 medium-sized onion and 2 large or 5 small green chilies which we have to roughly chop. I always have shortcuts in the kitchen, so I'm using a food processor to chop the watercress instead. It only takes like 10 seconds. Leave it to rest before cooking to aid the formation of sulforaphane, which are compounds that suppress cancer cell growth. These sulforaphanes only form when you chop and leave them aside for at least 40 minutes. Actually, they can also form if you chew them, but you have to chew it for like an hour or so. While the watercress is resting, let's prepare the tofu. I have this pre-pressed tofu and I also have some homemade Indian pickle. Cut the tofu into squares or diamonds, whatever shape you like. Actually, cutting into squares is generally easy. First, cut the tofu into strips and then into small squares. Take a small little bowl and add 2 teaspoons of the pickle meat and then add in the tofu. I would suggest to get a beautiful color, season with some turmeric powder and add in 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Close the lid and shake them vigorously. Great exercise, right, before eating? This way tofu gets coated with the pickle beautifully. You can also use a Ziploc cover and it produces the same effect. Ideally, if you can marinate the tofu in the fridge overnight, it will work wonders. If not, it still tastes great too. Add a teaspoon of oil to a frying pan. I'm using sesame oil. Add in some cashews. This is completely optional. Skip if you're allergic to nuts. Toast them in the oil, move them to one side and add in the tofu. If you want to go oil-free, I would suggest baking the tofu in the oven at 180 degrees for 15 minutes. If you're going to stir fry like this, it will only take about 2 to 3 minutes. First, remove the cashews once golden brown and crispy, then continue with the rest of the tofu until it becomes golden brown as well. To a pan on high heat, add half a teaspoon of oil. You can use the same pan that you used for frying the tofu too. Add half a teaspoon of cumin once the oil is warm and wait for it to bloom. You can also use mustard seeds instead of cumin seeds, and actually they work better. Add 1 teaspoon of fennel seeds, coat with the oil, and then add 1 chopped medium-sized onion and saute for about 10 seconds. Add in 4 chopped garlic cloves, then add the chopped green chilies and give everything a mix. Add in the chopped watercress from the food processor, or if you've cut it with your knife. Wash out the food processor with half a cup of water. Add 1 teaspoon of salt and give a mix. Close the lid and cook for about 5 to 10 minutes on medium heat. I cooked for about 5 minutes and all the water was absorbed and I switched off the stove. Now let's blend this cooked watercress to a fine puree. I'm using a stick blender, but you can use any blender. If you're using those lidded blenders, make sure the mixture is cool before you actually puree it. I cooked the watercress only for 5 minutes, but that was my personal choice. You can cook it longer, but the longer you cook, the more peppery it gets. When you're using the stick blender, be careful to make sure that it's immersed at all times within the mixture that you're blending to stop it from splashing and causing heat burns. Our watercress puree is now ready. Add in 2 cups of cooked rice. I generally tend to use leftover rice or even quinoa for this. Mix gently without breaking the rice. It's time to plate up! I have this beautiful green watercress rice in the center of the bowl. Added the stir-fried tofu for that healthy plant-based protein, and then some pomegranate seeds for that extra crunch. and then some lightly steamed sweet potato or even carrots. The sweetness of the sweet potatoes and carrots can actually balance the pepperiness of the watercress. Add in some red peppers to make up for the vitamin C that you lost in cooking, and you can top up with nuts, and this is optional. Squeeze in some lime juice. A wholesome watercress rice bowl with pickle marinated tofu is now ready to enjoy. I would suggest that you mix everything together and then eat so that you get that flavor combination that is so unbelievably amazing.
So I really hope you enjoy making this recipe. In our pro tip today, we'll talk about watercress. Watercress, as I said before, is a highly nutrient-dense vegetable. What that means is that it contains more vitamins and minerals in relation to its weight. Taking just 35 grams of watercress a day can help meet your daily dietary vitamin K requirement, which is important for blood clotting. It is rich in calcium than milk, it is rich in vitamin C than oranges, and it also contains a number of other vitamins and minerals including calcium, magnesium and phosphorus, which is very important for your bone health. It is great for eye health because it contains beta-carotene and luteins. Research also shows that it can have DNA damage reducing abilities, and this is probably the link between reduced cancer risk and the consumption of all brassica vegetables including watercress. Also, the presence of dietary nitrates help reduce the blood pressure, and because it contains so many phenolic antioxidants, it can help reduce the risk of chronic diseases. More interestingly, in traditional medicine, it's used to treat urinary tract infections, and this is being researched into now to create a supplement that will reduce the need for antibiotics. And what's more exciting is it is so rich in plant-based protein that a new plant-based protein is on the way very shortly based on watercress. So what stops you from enjoying this wonderful vegetable? Go ahead and try it and let me know in the comments. That's it for me today. This is Vishwa signing off for Feed Your Body, Mind and Soul. Stay happy, stay healthy. Bye.